Right, time now. 8 minutes past 6. We're back at 6:30. Here's Penny.
Thanks very much, Anne. The blockade of French ports is signalling yet another week of disruption for British truck drivers, with more than 1,000 currently waiting on Kent motorways for the next ferry abroad. After a series of blockades in France and Greece over the winter, many trucking companies are already struggling to survive. Joining me now is Jeff Doster of the Freight Transport Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
French fishermen taking this action in protest over EU rules affecting their catches. Now, close to 1,000 drivers are affected. They're not having a good year of it, are they?
Well, this is the second major problem we've had in 6 months. In November, of course, lorry drivers were caught up in the blockades. We've also had problems in Greece and Spain. This week, of course, we've had IRA terrorist problems, so it goes on and on and on. And now we've got all this wretched nonsense by a bunch of French fishermen. Nonsense.
And how much does it all cost, haulier?
Well, this particular exercise we anticipate will cost at least £500,000 per day. But that's only the operating cost of the vehicles, not the consequential losses as a result of lost deliveries, lost profits and so on. So big money.
And does it have a knock-on effect on us, the consumers?
Well, it will do ultimately. Of course, the question of delivery of perishable goods and the like are all caught up, both sides of the channel. And eventually, of course, the cost of the whole exercise has to be paid for by the companies involved. That means being paid for by the end consumer.
But can you expect any compensation?
It would be nice, but we don't anticipate it. But by coincidence, we are going from the Freight Transport Association to the French Embassy this very morning to look for the claim for compensation of 800 million French francs. For the last time round in November, the French said they would pay up. They have refused to so far.
And what about the Greek one? Because that was also another...
Well, getting money out of the French is bad enough. Getting money out of the Greeks is even more difficult, I suspect. Those claims are in process, but nothing on the horizon at the moment.
On that gloomy note, we'll leave it. Jeff Doster, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You're watching the Reuters News Hour on GMTV. The time is 14 minutes past 6. Let's have a look at some of the stories making the front page of this morning's papers. These are the broadsheets today. The Independent, now it's a fight to the death. Blair warns Labour as lead slips. The Guardian, poll shock for Labour. Lead shrinks to 5 points as Tories catch Euro mood. That's a poll in the ICM. Labour lead collapses in new poll, but the picture here is from Peru, and that is actually on the front page of the Times. Sorry, hostages free after 126 days. That's how long they were in the Japanese embassy. And for the latest from Peru, we're now joined on the line from Lima by the Reuters Bureau Chief, Andrew Cawthorne. Good morning.
Good morning.
So there must be a sense of euphoria in Peru today.
There's a sense of euphoria throughout the country among the hostages families, politicians, the government, and the hundreds of journalists who've been covering this story now for more than 4 months.
This took everyone by surprise, didn't it?
It was a complete surprise. It was a completely routine day at the residence. The Red Cross took food in. Journalists were waiting for negotiators to turn up at the residence as usual. There was no word on the plans to attack the resident, which were clearly a closely guarded secret, known only to President Fujimori and his top advisors.
So do we know why they decided to choose yesterday to actually go in?
No one knows why yet. The president has said he was forced to that decision by factors inside the residence, which were probably the rebels' continued insistence on the release of their jailed comrades, possibly also the manner in which they were treating the hostages inside.
And now, of course, they have threatened retaliation.
The MRTA rebels have threatened to retaliate through their international spokesman in Germany. This is being taken very seriously in Peru. The armed forces are on alert. However, this is a small group we're talking about. Despite the extraordinary seizure of the residents they managed to maintain for 4 months, they're still a very small group. They're a much smaller group now that 14 of them have been killed. So while the warning is being taken very seriously, no one seriously expects another major incident like this to happen.
Andrew Cawthorne, thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Just continue our look at the papers and the lighter side of life. Both stories this morning featured on page 3 of the Mirror, alongside Miss Giovanna Fella, who's backing Labour, but that's not really the point. This is George Ralph sitting in what's left of his bathroom. Poor old George ran a bath of hot water, and all he did was drop an aerosol can in his bath, and look what happened. Lucky to be alive, they say. Apparently this will happen with an aerosol can and a bath of hot water. Oh, surely there must have been something wrong with the can.
Or the water.
God knows what was in the can. And just one thing here. An application form for a job as a police driver has been printed in Braille.
That's very handy.
Think about that. It's now Thanks very much.
Time is almost 26 minutes past 6. Home security is a growing market with millions spent every year on protecting property. But the magazine Which has identified a new threat. 1 in 10 of us will fall victim to garden thieves this year. The problem is so great that the Metropolitan Police have set up a special unit to deal with it. Our gardening correspondent, Sue Saville, is busy digging away in West London. Good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Penny.
How easy is it to steal a garden, then?
Very